Request has been sent. All right, yeah, let's get started then. Welcome everyone to the December community meeting. There's been a few, I think last month we skipped, so I'm glad everyone's here to chat. I think since it'll be smaller group, we can keep this casual. We are recording this, it'll go on YouTube, and I think the slides will be shared. But if you have any questions or comments, you could just unmute and talk anytime. This is just a conversation this time. Yeah, you can use the chat if you are more comfortable as well. Yep. And then let's go to the agenda. We'll talk about the community outreach and then the 4.12.x bug fix releases and updates. And then we'll go into open-end Q&A. Great, thank you. Nicholas, you want to take it away?
Yeah, thank you so much, Caroline. For community outreach, it's just a very basic name for a wide conglomerate of things that we did in the past month, I think. The main part is KoalaCon. KoalaCon happened last Monday, like last week on Monday. And KoalaCon was really about the Transparency Exchange API that an OWASP working group or a ECMA working group is working on. And that is really interesting for users of Dependency-Track because Dependency-Track will integrate with the Transparency Exchange API. It's really about sharing transparency artifacts like SBOMs, like VEX files. And I presented during the KoalaCon as well how we envision Dependency-Track integrating with this and working with this and how that affects the user's workflow essentially. If this is the first time you heard about it, I highly recommend watching the video. Even if you have heard about it before, watch the video, please. And also, I think towards the end of Ollie's part, there are also like various ways where you can contribute to this effort, which would be highly appreciated as well. Then just this last Monday, so the Monday this week, both Steve and I joined the Quarkus Insights podcast, where Alexei from the Quarkus team showed us how he integrated CycloneDX SBOM generation natively with the Quarkus framework. There are a few specific things about Quarkus that make like the existing Maven plugin, for example, or the Gradle plugin not a good fit to capture all the dependencies of your Quarkus application. And Alexei walked us through how he implemented this for Quarkus. Steve and I were there for like just byproduct essentially. Steve talked about what CycloneDX is, how it is regulated, how it is being worked on. And I gave a little demo about Dependency-Track, but really the core part is Alexei's part about how they generate SBOMs. Yeah, and in that sense, the extension for Quarkus is out now or has been out for a while. We ourselves, like for the Dependency-Track project, we use this extension. It is very easy to use. So if you too are developing applications based on Quarkus, I highly recommend you check this extension out if you are generating SBOMs. Then Ollie approached me. Ollie, maybe if you also want to say something about this, there will probably be a hackathon at AppSec, at Global AppSec Barcelona, which is I think in May. So the idea is essentially that I think the Transparency Exchange API will have a hackathon where they prototype API implementations and test them. And we could also take part in this. For example, we could use this to test or implement new things in Hyades, the upcoming version 5 of Dependency-Track, or we could brainstorm and develop and test Transparency Exchange API implementation with Dependency-Track. Maybe Ollie, if you want to say.
I think actually both. What we're discussing is having a general OWASP hackathon. And I think a lot of developers that have integrated with Dependency-Track would like to test with Hyades and work with APIs. And that will give you feedback immediately. Of course, personally, I want the focus to be on the Koala, the T, which I think will be ready, and we have the first interoperability tests at that moment. But right now, we're looking into which project that are interested in inviting the communities to Barcelona for running this. I would suggest that we do it IETF style, that we have a large room with large tables where different teams can meet. At the end of the day, we summarize both what we accomplished, what we learned, and what we think about this way of doing hackathons, how we can improve the hackathons, and present that to everyone in the room. I think this can be very, very beneficial for all our projects.
Yeah, sounds good to me. My main request for the community would just be if you are interested in participating in this hackathon, and in particular, maybe in participating on something that Dependency-Track involves, please just let us know so we can kind of gauge if there's interest and then also how much interest there is. That would be much appreciated.
You can use the Slack channel to give feedback if you're interested in coming or planning to come.
Yeah. Okay, anything else you want to say on this topic maybe? Or awesome.
I'm done.
Awesome. Then moving on for the version 4.12.x bug fix releases. Just as a reminder, I think the last meeting we had was in October. So since then, or shortly before the October meeting, we released version 4.12.0. And since then, we released 2 bug fix versions, the latter of which earlier today. Just to summarize a few more high-level things that we fixed here. Multiple cases of excessive memory usage in recurring tasks. For example, the portfolio repository metadata analysis task, which is just responsible for fetching latest versions in remote repositories, and the portfolio metrics task. So those accumulated more and more memory the longer they ran. So if you had a large portfolio, of course, this could accumulate quite a bit of memory over time. Also, like various inaccuracies in the trivia analyzer have been fixed. There was an issue with epoch parts of the versions not being submitted to Trivy. And if you have ever used versions of OS packages, they oftentimes use an epoch version to symbolize, hey, we fixed something here that was not in the upstream version, or we backported a fix. So this caused like false positives and false negatives alike. Also, the analysis of Go packages was not working quite right when you analyzed the BOM that was not generated by Trivy, because the Go package names would be submitted in the wrong format to the Trivy server. This has also been fixed. We also had multiple URL encoding issues in the front end. For example, tag names were not properly URL encoded. So if you had a tag with like lots of special characters, it could, in the worst case, render the entire tag table that we added in version 4.12 broken. It would not render. And the similar thing was also for vulnerability IDs. If you created a custom vulnerability with a slash in it, for example, then also you couldn't view it in the UI, and this has been fixed now. Also, there was, how do I say this? So when you upload a BOM, there's kind of a workflow going on. So first the BOM is processed, then the latest versions are fetched, and then the vulnerabilities are analyzed. And both after latest versions are fetched and vulnerabilities analyzed, we run a policy evaluation task. So if you have policies that assert on latest versions being available, for example, they have a chance to run as soon as possible. And also when you have policies that evolve around vulnerabilities, for example, severities, the idea is that those policies can be evaluated as soon as possible, as soon as fresh data is available. And this has caused race conditions before, which in the worst case could have led to duplicate policy violations in your portfolio. This has been fixed as well now. Also, if you like upgraded previous versions of Dependency-Track, especially the front end, it could happen that after you upgraded the front end, your browser still served a cached version of the previous front end version. So this could lead to various front end issues because the previous version of the front end obviously would not work anymore. This has also been fixed by not caching certain parts of the front end. If you, for whatever reason, still encounter caching issues after you upgraded the front end past version 4.12.1, please let us know. It's a very annoying issue, and we would really like to fix it for good. but we obviously hope it has been fixed for good now. There's a lot more as well. As always, please just check the change logs. I just covered very few high-level things here. And then, as every good security project, I guess we also have our own CVE this time. This has been fixed in today's bug fix release. This is about enumeration of managed users via the login endpoint. It's kind of a common issue, I think. Essentially, it boils down to if you request or if you try to log in as a user that exists, it takes significantly longer, or the request takes significantly longer than if you try to log in as a user that does not exist. So you can use this difference in request timings to enumerate which username exists in the system. And this explicitly only works for managed users. For example, of course, your admin user, but that username is known. And it does not affect LDAP or OpenID Connect users. Basically, what the problem was for transparency here, again, I think pretty common. We use bcrypt for password hashing. And with bcrypt, the salt is typically appended to the hash in the database. And the salt is random, of course. So you cannot simply calculate the password hash and then do a lookup in the database with it. So essentially, what was happening is we fetched the user first and then did the hash comparison if the user existed. And the solution here is pretty simple. You just calculate the hash no matter if the user exists or not. So there's no observable time difference anymore. And this was disclosed to us. What is the correct word? Responsibly disclosed to us by a community member. And like, if you want to have a CVE with your name on it, just like, please let us know and responsibly disclose any issues that you find that you think are security relevant. But yeah, this was fixed in version 4.12.2, which was released today. So if you think this is a danger to your specific system, then please do upgrade. As for version 4.13, one thing before I start listing the things, as you may have noticed, because we skipped the last community meeting, there has not been a lot of activity in the past 2 months. That's just because like life happens sometimes and you don't have time for open source sometimes. So we are still reviewing quite a few things. We already merged a few improvements for mainly memory footprint and database efficiency fixes. For example, we disabled the L2 cache of the ORM globally. Previously, the L2 cache of the ORM had like accumulated way too much data that it never really used, so the cache was kind of pointless. But we didn't disable the cache before because we were unsure how it would affect like production grade systems. You never really know like how the cache hit rate is. So the decision to fully disable this is kind of based on our experience with Hades. We disabled the L2 cache quite early in the development process because we needed the API server to run in a horizontally scaled manner, right? And if each API server has its own L2 cache, then you get all kinds of consistency issues. So we had to disable it soon during the development phases. And we didn't see any big drawbacks from this. And we also consulted the metrics of the ORM for the cache hit rate, and it was surprisingly low. So we came to the conclusion the cache doesn't really do anything and just wastes memory. So it's disabled for the next release. Then also a community contribution for making database operations more efficient when you update vulnerability data, which happens, for example, during NVD mirroring or OSV mirroring. And then still planned, and I would just like to refer back to the previous community meeting where we had like screenshots for all of these things. Collection projects are still planned. Scheduled summary notifications are still planned. Better configuration management is still planned. The first improvements for the vulnerability database effort that we have are still planned. For the first 3 issues here, we already have pull requests that just need reviewing. If you created these pull requests and you're watching this, I'm terribly sorry for being late with the reviews. I promise I will get to it during the next days. Then we have a few promising new contributions as well that are planned for this release. Someone from Rode and Schwarz is working on assigning permissions to individual API keys, just for for explaining how it currently works. Currently, we have teams, and teams can have API keys, and you assign permissions to teams and not API keys. So you can get, or the goal here is to be more, to give more granular controls over the permissions that you hand out via API keys here. There's also, currently API keys are not stored in a hashed format in the database. And there's also pull request in the underlying framework for us, for Dependency-Track, that will change this and store them in a hashed format. This will also lead to you not being able to see the full API key in the administration panel anymore. Currently, if you create an API key once, and then you move to another page and then return back to the API key page, you can still see the full key in the UI. And after this has been merged, this will change. This will then work more like you know it from GitHub, for example. You generate the API key once, you see it once, you are being asked to copy it somewhere safe. And after that, you will never see it in the UI in its full form again. So this is also promising. And a new API endpoint has been suggested for deleting projects in bulk more efficiently. And this is really useful for just housekeeping tasks, for example, for enforcing retention rules of your organization. At the moment, you would have to delete projects individually, and that becomes quite expensive if you have to delete like thousands of projects. Yeah, and that's really it for the current state of version 4.13. And then if you have questions or critique or anything, just fire away.
Hey guys, big thumbs up for the bulk delete. I really need that. So thank you.
This is also a contribution, so thank the contributor. But
Thank you.
that's good feedback. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, any other questions or comments? Quiet group this time.
Question from me. Any updates on Hades, like what is going to happen, or any progress there?
No super big changes, like mainly porting of changes from Dependency-Track version 4. There are a few smaller changes, but I figured it wasn't like worth listing them here. There are some. Should I spoil this now? We are kind of working on figuring out if we really need Kafka for version 5 of Dependency-Track, and we are looking to drop this dependency. I cannot like promise anything at this point, but we are actively looking into this, and we are hoping that Kafka might not be a requirement for version 5. I think like for many people, it's a hard sell to require this architecture piece or this infrastructure piece. And it would also dramatically simplify our own development workflow, if that makes sense. I'm hoping I can present more about this during the next meeting, but I first want to discuss this internally with the team. But that is probably like the biggest change that is currently being worked on.
Yeah, thanks.
Looks like Ollie wrote something. I don't know if it was from a previous topic. Have we published PGP keys and ways to report somewhere?
Yeah,
Oh, you mean for
we talked about security disclosure and reaching, and I see on GitHub that you just suggest mailing to 2 different mail addresses, but not being able to encrypt it. And I think GitHub also has a way without PGP keys where you can do this.
I have to admit this, the security email for Dependency-Track, maybe you can go there real quick. Oops. The security email currently goes to a to an inbox that's
Yeah,
Steve controlled.
Yeah, you have a security tab also. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah. I think the thing is that most people just email us because some of them don't even have GitHub accounts. Like the person that reported the latest vulnerability, they also just emailed us and they didn't give us a GitHub account to give credit for. But yeah, very true. This option is also
security researchers want to have a private conversation, so
yeah,
and make sure that the email reached the right person.
yeah, sure. So the suggestion is to add a PGP key just here for
Yeah, or
encryption.
see, I'm trying to learn, and I postponed that. GitHub have another way of handling this and created kind of hidden issues based on reports. And then you don't need any email or old-fashioned PGP keys as well. But I guess if we had a CV now and security reports, we can raise the bar a little bit.
Yeah, makes sense.
So what are you saying? It's as simple as basically extending our issue creation template to allow a security issue to be reported, and then it would basically be hidden?
I don't think it's actually showing up in the usual issues because you want these to be very private, and I don't think GitHub issues can be private. But there's a special security tracker. I'm guessing a lot now, so I have to check. But I think that we may need to, and maybe this is something we can do across OWASP. There are a lot of guides on how to handle vulnerability reporting, but being able to handle this is a requirement in the CRA, so we all have to learn, I guess. But what you have here is a good first step, but I think we can raise the bar a little bit.
Yeah, I just remembered how this basically works is you can create advisories here. And we do this for all the vulnerabilities that reach us. And when you create them initially, you can create private branches from this and then privately or in a hidden way work on this.
Yep.
And you can invite third-party people, for example, the person who reported this, the person who created the fix. And then when everyone approves, you can publish this vulnerability.
Exactly.
But in this case, again, the person was not a GitHub user. So we still use this workflow, but we didn't involve that specific person in GitHub.
No. Cool. Good work.
Okay, if there are no more questions, thanks for everyone to come out. I think the January community meeting might be pushed back a week. I think we'll discuss, but the first Wednesday is the 1st of January, so I think we'll mostly be out. But yeah, we'll announce in the chat. But yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of your year, spending time holidays with your family, and we will chat on Slack. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye now.
Thank you.